The Reds gave updates on several injured players, which makes us believe help might be on the way. We'll tell you who's back and when on today's Locked On Reds.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are glad that you're alongside us here today. We have both loved the Reds pretty much our entire lives, as much as they don't love to love us back, but we are all in on this team every single day here on the Locked On Reds podcast that is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And on every episode, we try to bring you the biggest thing that every Reds fan wants to talk about. We're going to look at geeky numbers. We're going to overreact to the daily motions of the MLB Ocean because we love these Cincinnati Reds. And I mean, this is my 6th season hosting the podcast. This is now a couple of seasons that Steve has joined me as well. He hosted a podcast solo about these Cincinnati Reds. We're just crazy about them. And we're glad that you're alongside us here today, because on today's show, we'll talk about a frustrating loss to the Colorado Rockies by the Cincinnati Reds last night, 6-5. Very preventable mistakes caused this loss, kind of a theme about this Reds season. We'll get into what those were. There were a couple of interesting notes from the game, though, including one slump that may be coming to an end. We'll look at that a little bit later on. Plus, Hunter Green is an all-star. We'll celebrate that right toward the end of the show, but we are going to start first with some great news, for the most part, some great news about some injured players and when they will be returning. That's all coming up on this episode of Locked On Reds that is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. And where we're going to start today here, Steve, is there were a lot of updates that the Reds relayed, most of them positive, and it could be important to a late season playoff surge for this team.
It could. I find it really interesting that the Reds dumped all of this at once, just like a whole, like just vomiting of information where they don't ever tell us anything. And then here's something about everybody. So let's try and work our way through these, because there's not a lot of surprises here. I want to start with that, Jeff. There's not a lot of surprises other than it seems like everybody's on track from what we were told when last we heard. So let's start with the little engine that could, Matt McLain. We have been just waiting to hear if we're going to get to see him this year or not. And what we're hearing lines up with what we were told at the very beginning. He is slated to start a rehab assignment on August 12th. And barring any setbacks, Jeff, that lines up perfectly for a September 1st Matty McLain back in the lineup at the big league level if there are no setbacks. That is huge timing. If the Reds are still in this whole crowded pack of wild card chasing, they could definitely use a Matt McLain, especially since if they do find a way to, maybe we're going to bring back hashtag sneak on in. They don't get to take Noelvi Marte with them. So it will be nice to get Matt McLain back to replace Noelvi Marte, and it goes on and on. But I'm excited that Matt McLain is on track and he's right where he said he was going to be, doing the things that he said he was going to do. This Reds lineup could definitely use Matt McLain.
Yeah, he's been ramping up with some different baseball conditioning activities, and the latest word from David Bell, he said this on Monday, or on Wednesday, sorry, get my days all mixed up there, but he was talking with reporters before the Rockies game on Wednesday, saying all these different injury updates, and he said that Matt McLain's been doing baseball activities, including swinging a bat now, and he still looks like he is on track to begin his rehab stint.
And to be clear with the swinging of the bat, he's not taking batting practice right now, guys.
Right.
He's just dry swinging the bat, getting the range of motion in that shoulder. It'll be much closer to that rehab assignment before he actually starts seeing batting practice, I think. Jeff, we got other good news. Good news for another infusion into this lineup. A guy that you can run out there to the top of the order. The captain of chaos himself, TJ Friedl, is set to return about a week to 10 days after the All-Star break. So basically 2 weeks from now.
which is huge because this outfield, as we have seen, has just been in flux and has badly needed anything. That's why we've been so excited about Rhys Hines and his amazing breakout after his call-up. Hopefully Austin Slater can figure some things out, although we're going to about his beginning to his Reds career. But yes, the Reds badly need TJ Friedl. He's been on and off the injured list all season long. His return will be huge. We did get some unfortunate news about Nick Martini. He had surgery on his thumb. He's going to be out till September. That was kind of the word, is that he will be out until September. I wonder if that means he will need rehab, although I can't remember if September, he might be AAA.
I would be surprised if we see Nick Martini back.
Yeah, I think so too.
In during this season. I think this surgery is what prompted them to go make this move with the Giants and bring in Slater. I think that we probably won't see Nick Martini back.
Well, and quite frankly, let's put it this way. If we see Nick Martini back, the Reds are not in this. Because if we see Nick Martini back, they didn't go and get an outfielder like we've wanted them to since last October. They are out of this race, and they're just trying to get some guys some at-bats. We're probably still talking about injuries to TJ Friedl and maybe somebody else. So if Nick Martini is back, it's probably not the best sign for the Reds' playoff hopes. And there were also some pitching updates as well when it came to all of these injuries. Brandon Williamson, he's going to be starting a bullpen here in a couple of weeks. It'd be interesting to see if we see him at all this year.
So if we remember when last we saw Brandon Williamson, he was on a rehab assignment, which the Reds returned him from because he had a setback. So I imagine they're going to bring him along slowly. These first bullpens in July, they'll build upon with, barring any setbacks, another September infusion, which I really think that this team is going to be looking for. Question is, will we see him as a starter, or will we see him as a bolstering to this bullpen with the fact that he's coming in September? I guess a lot of that will depend on how Nick Lodolo's workload has been, how Andrew Abbott is holding up. He's going to surpass his innings totals that he had last year, as long as he keeps pitching the way that he's pitching. So the timing for Brandon Williamson is very good. You could actually use him as a starter through September to give everybody a break to miss a turn to prepare for a postseason in a 6-man rotation. Exactly. I've never seen a team that likes to make wonky roster moves more than the Cincinnati Reds. And we saw this.
Speaking of people who could be in the bullpen later this year.
Correct. We saw this with Graham Ashcraft. Graham Ashcraft was sent out. We talked about this the other day, demoted back to Louisville. But wait, apparently Graham Ashcraft has been pitching through elbow problems, and that doesn't seem to have come as a surprise to Nick Krall. But once he got down to Louisville, apparently Graham Ashcraft went and got some imaging on that elbow, and it revealed a problem. So the Reds have canceled his option to Louisville and instead placed him on the injured list. I have so many questions about what Nick Krall knew and when he knew it.
Yeah, because it was a direct quote. I read this it was in Charlie's tweet and in an article written by Mark Sheldon, that he has been dealing with elbow tightness for the last week or so. And that is a direct quote from Nick Krall. And it's like,
which means they knew about it before his last start. So they knew about it before his last start, which I think is problematic.
That's problematic on a number of levels. It's just like, okay, you're going to let him pitch through this. You know what's going to happen. He's a pitcher. It's an elbow. I mean, this is 1 + 1 = 2. This isn't just like, well, Graham Ashcraft's different. Literally every pitcher that has any problems with their elbow whatsoever should not be on a mound trying to pitch in a Major League Baseball game. I'm sorry. And then the other question that I have, where is this MRI that he apparently hit between 71 and between Cincinnati and Louisville? Because like before he got down there, they're like, oh yeah,
place in Florence. Is there like an MRI? Is there an MRI machine? Is it
like 0-10 or something?
Yeah.
Like, or are we hitting the exit that you're supposed to get off and go to Buffalo Trace? Was that on that same exit too? I don't understand where they found this thing at, but yeah, like they were able to recall the option so that they don't use the option, and they just put him on the injured list. So that's how he's gotten away. And then Ian Gibaut, real quick note on him as well. He is going to have a bullpen. The Reds. Still here.
Did you
Yeah,
know
we
that
haven't said that
Ian
name in a
Jabot still
while.
plays for the Reds?
I got to talk to him like what feels like 6 years ago. No, sorry, that was 2 months ago. But talked to him in Dayton, and he had a bunch of setbacks. He's set for a bullpen on July 16th with a possible mid-August return. Cue up the trade deadline acquisition headline for him. But the whole point of this is guys are getting closer, but they're not close. They're not going, none of these guys, and I'm looking at the notes that we have. Yeah, none of them are back before the trade deadline. Go make some trades.
Go make some trades. Yeah, you know what? I consider this to be positive updates on everybody. Nobody has had further setbacks. Everybody is moving forward. These are positive injury updates that could be important when we get late into the season for a playoff surge. But that's later in the season, as you say. And that's why losses like the one we had last night sting a little bit more, because the Reds need to win every game that they can. And there were 2 preventable reasons why the Reds lost last night. We're going to get into that coming up next. You know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really, really good? That's what I get from Stitch Fix. Easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a professional stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. I just give my stylist my size, my style, and my budget preferences. I order boxes when I want and how I want. No subscription required. And they send me 5 just for me pieces. Plus, outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. I keep what works for me. I send back the rest. My stylist always sends just right pieces, and the fit is on point. It's like they can read my mind. I don't know how they do it. They just get me. And if you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges, they're always free with Stitch Fix. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix.com/MLB for $20 off. stitchfix.com/MLB must redeem within 7 days of sign up.
Here on Locked On Reds, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news about the Cincinnati Reds. Whether it's the offseason, the draft, spring training, or the playoffs, it's year-round. You know what else is year-round? Collection season. Just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. Don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. I know, I filed my taxes multiple different ways. I have multiple different forms that I have to use, and Tax Network USA makes it easy to do that and so much more, because they have over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau. Tax Network USA can save their clients over $1 billion in tax debt like they have already. Whether you owe taxes, you have complicated matters that require tax planning, or you finally hit big on that parlay and you need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/locked on. For more information, see the link in this episode description below.
If you haven't done so, you have got to check out Locked On Sports today. It's a free 24/7 streaming sports channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories in sports. Locked On Sports today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news from our national hosts, as well as our local experts like me and Jeff. It streams 24/7 on YouTube or for free on the Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Jeff, last night was one of those losses that just really gets under my skin, because first of all, it's a team that they should handle easily. And the fact that they lost the game boils my blood, but to lose it the way that they lost it, you can point to a couple different things. I'm not sure where you want to start on this. Let's start early in the game. You know, we saw the debut of newly acquired Austin Slater making his Reds debut. It feels like we waited a week for him to get here from San Francisco and take over one of the outfield positions. And he gets here and he did not look good. He did not look comfortable, really. Credit to him. He did eventually get a hit later in the game, but he didn't look great in the field.
No, there was a key play where he kind of misreads the ball off the bat, It flies over his head, which that's fine. Maybe he doesn't get to it. But after it goes over his head, bounces off the wall a little bit, he tries to glove it and then transition when he should have just picked it up with his bare hand. But he kind of, the way that he was approaching this, he was kind of like, yeah, I'll scoop this up and get it thrown in real quick. The guy's running all the way around. He turns this thing into an easy triple. And he ends up scoring a couple of batters later because the Reds were able to get 2 quick outs, but they couldn't get the third out and keep him on third. It was just a very annoying sequence. And plus he also had the fly ball from Jake Cave that he lost in the sun, and Jake Cave was on base whenever there was a home run hit, and it was just a very annoying sequence of events that kind of began this game. And this was in the middle of the Reds lineup just getting dominated by Kyle Freeland. So that kind of got this all started here.
Yeah, and then there's another play later in the game. And listen, I've had some complaints from time to time about how J.R. House coaches third base. And most of those, like, you know, I don't know what I would do if I'm over there in the moment and have to choose whether to send a runner or not. And especially for a team where the manager's telling me we're going to be aggressive. But this is what I do know. With my catcher at second base on a double, I am not bringing him on over.
No.
With no outs. You have to know the limitations of your athlete. So I wish we had some audio from J.R. House. We're not going to get any audio from J.R. House because I would love to know what he was thinking. Did he forget that it was Tyler Stephenson? Did he forget that it was a catcher over there? One of the slowest guys on the team that you're going to try and get over there to third base. And here's where it really gets super annoying, Jeff, because if he had just held him up, he would have scored on the very next play. He would have scored. So, and that could have been the difference in the ball game. The Reds ended up losing this game by 1 run with a rally that fell short. That could have changed the whole course and tenor of the game if they started scoring runs then with no outs versus 1 out and nobody on. You know what I mean?
And that's the thing too, because I've seen some folks, and I've had these thoughts as well when I look back on this game, and I say, well, could David Bell have pulled Frankie Montas earlier? Could David Bell have picked a different relief pitcher than Brent Suter? Could David Bell have done this? Could they have managed this differently? And quite frankly, these were the 2 things that just stood out in my mind, that it's like, these were preventable mistakes. The way that the ball was played off the wall from Austin Slater, and the way that, you know, J.R. House and thankfully Bally Sports got a good camera angle on this. They show clearly that J.R. House is saying, come on to third. And when you watch it too, I kept watching that replay just be like, why did he think this? Tyler Stephenson didn't even think he was going to go to third, because if you watch how he's running as he is taking his last like step and a half into second base, he slows his stride up a little bit so that he's, you know, going to hit second base, maybe round it a little bit and take a look and see where the ball is. And then you're good to go. But his momentum is dying at that point. And then he's seeing J.R. House saying, come on in. And he's like, oh, okay, I got to get the momentum back up and going. And he's not Ellie De La Cruz. He's not even Jammer Candelario when it comes to speed. So he's not going to get that momentum up in time. And he was thrown out plain as day at third base. And Jake Cave, which it was interesting because that play in right field, Jake Cave like errantly dives for the ball, thinking he's going to make a catch. And so the Reds were gifted an opportunity here, and they hand it right back. It's things like that in this game were frustrating and led to a loss. And they've been doing that all season. And it just feels like there's little things like that as much as we want to get into the nitty-gritty detail of existential ideas and thoughts and philosophies when it comes to running a team, there are these obvious things that they need to fix as well.
Let me ask you this, because you brought it up. You talked about the usage of the pitching, Frankie Montas bringing in Brent Suter when they did. Did it feel to you somewhere around the 4th or 5th inning that David Bell decided that this was a throwaway game? I kind of got that feel a little bit when it was clear that it wasn't dominant Frankie Montas. He was doing fine. It was weird. You said this on our press, that it was kind of more like death by 1,000 cuts versus him getting blown up. But it was clear that he was just not quite right. He was a little bit off. They were getting to him a little bit. And I feel like David Bell made a decision somewhere along the way of, you know what, screw it. This is a throwaway. We'll win this series tomorrow. And cool, but this team's not in a position to throw away games.
No, and quite frankly, I don't know that it was a throwaway, but I also kind of got the vibe a little bit that there was a point in about the fourth inning whenever the Rockies had scored just again. And it almost seemed as though David Bell, and they had this camera shot of him where like he like drops his head in the dugout, shakes it, and then like, shakes it off, and then he's back to watching the game. I'm like, did he just switch to, all right, we got to save the bullpen for the rest of the week because there's no days off? Like, I kind of wondered that a little bit. I'm not going to lie. I'm with you on that. But yeah, and the reason that I say death by 1,000 cuts, like obviously there were some homers hit by the Rockies here, but Frankie Montas this year, when he has been bad, it's because he's had these innings that just are just huge avalanches.
Yeah, 35 pitch,
hits.
5 runs. Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't have that in this because when he got to the 7th inning, he was still under 90 pitches. Like I remember you texting me, you were just like, they're just going to run him to death, shoulder recovery and all. And I'm like, he's still under 90 pitches. It's just because he would give up a big hit and then he'd go get 3 outs. But it was the big hit that scored the run anyway. And they did that 4 innings in a row. So it was a very annoying start overall, and I think that you could definitely question the management style a little bit, but I still point back to these 2 plays that had they just went the other way, and it wasn't even like a what-if scenario if he made a different decision. It's like, literally, if you don't play the ball bad off the wall, and if Tyler Stephenson stays at second, the Reds probably win this game.
So let's real quick, before we get out of this segment, Jeff, just for a second, talk about the day that Tyler Stephenson had, and more importantly, the last several days that Tyler Stephenson's had. You can kind of go back to, we did that live show over at Smoke Justice with the folks from Late Night Reds, and our guy, Walmart Jeff, Tim Daniel, said that maybe it was time to move on from Tyler Stephenson. Tyler Stephenson never. Tyler Stephenson has blown up since then, folks. My countdown's down to 32 on the home runs, folks. Tyler Stephenson is hitting the ball hard. He's hitting the ball well, and I love to see it. I'm happy. This is the kind of production that they need from him.
Is it 5 extra base hits in the last 3 games or something?
I think that's
it's
right.
a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a lot.
He is hitting the cover off the ball right now, and he has been a big reason. I mean, obviously Reese Hines, but he's been a big reason that the Reds have continued to score. It's not as if it's just one guy hitting the cover off the ball. Tyler Stephenson has been doing that as well, which also makes me wonder a little bit. There were a couple of other guys that did some hitting in this game. One of them, could he be coming out of a slump? We'll discuss that coming up next. This episode of Locked On Reds is brought to you by Booking.com. Yeah, because with the baseball season rolling along, we're getting into the All-Star break, and then we'll be in the stretch run headed toward the playoffs. You're probably going to want to follow along with the Reds, kind of like I am doing later this month going down to Atlanta, and Booking.com is going to make that so easy to do. Whether you're going to Atlanta or you want to go to your rival cities or whatever, Booking.com makes it easy. They've got hotels, they got Airbnbs, they got condos, they got all kinds of resorts and stuff like that are centered around, where you can find your baseball stadium of choice, whether you're going to see the Reds face the Cardinals or the Brewers or the Cubs, or even if you're going to go see them face the Marlins later on this month as well. Booking.com can help with all of that. And they've got the easiest way to figure it all out. Whether you're talking about, you Google the stadium on their site and you'll find hotels near the stadium, because the right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. So go to Booking.com on their website and book today, or you can use the Booking.com app.
You can take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with GameTime. You just got to download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. If you're looking to score a deal on tickets, look no further than GameTime. Jeff and I tell you all the time, this is our go-to app. We head down to the banks, we find our favorite restaurant, we grab a bite to eat, we have a couple beverages, and right about the time we need to head into first pitch, we jump on the GameTime app and score a great deal. If you're going to a venue and you don't know that venue, they've got views from your seat. You'll be able to see exactly what it's going to look like when you get to your seat. They have all-in pricing, no surprises. You just go, you look for your all-in price. That's exactly what you are going to pay. Deeply discounted tickets. And again, if you just download the GameTime app and create an account and use the promo code Locked On MLB, you're going to get $20 off those already greatly discounted tickets. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
You can catch every pitch of the Reds' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM wherever you go. Just download the SXM app and search the word Reds. Also, get written content about.
All right, Jeff, I was just going to say,
Reds.
I was hearing from a bunch of our everydayers were messaging me on social media. I guess our ads have ramped up on the SXM app.
Hey.
They've been hearing us over there, our ads for over there. So appreciate you guys using the SXM app to listen to the Reds hometown broadcast.
Absolutely. Always love hearing a little bit of advertisement, getting the word out, because we love talking Reds baseball. We talk Reds baseball with every Reds fan out there. And maybe even if you're not a Reds fan, we'll talk some Reds with you too. And why our team is better than yours. I'm just kidding. I mean, there's a lot of times where we're not, so that happens too. But there were a couple of performances that I wanted to look at in this game, outside of the annoyances and outside of the couple of mistakes that really sunk the game. Rhys Hines took him 3 games to hit a single. Are we worried about that it took him that long to hit a single?
Listen, I'm actually so excited about some of the at-bats that he had last night, Jeff. This at-bat that led to a single, he sat back. So they figured it out, and we saw this with Aristides Aquino. I've seen you guys, by the way. I've seen the comparison.
There's been a lot of that.
There's been a lot of that. But what Aristides Aquino couldn't do is hit the breaking stuff. And you knew it was coming with Rhys Hines. And what he was able to do last night was sit back, slow down his swing, and push the breaking stuff the other way. That single was to right field. And then he had an at-bat later in the game where I think it ultimately ended up being an out, but he battled and sat back.
Yep.
Yeah, he battled and sat back and didn't just try to kill the ball, and knew and understood what was going to be coming his way and made the pitcher work. And that was, honest to God, Jeff, that was a relief for me, watching the at-bats we saw out of him last night, because he's a young guy, and I think there's a tendency to think that he's going to go out there and try to Aristides Aquino the thing and see if he can hit 20 home runs this month. But I was so encouraged by what I saw from his at-bats last night against the Rockies.
Yeah, and that at-bat that you were referencing, the 9th inning one where he battled, he ended up hitting a pretty nice line drive into the gap in right center field. They just kind of had him faded over a little bit, and so the right fielder was there to catch it, and it ended up being an out instead of a hit. But it was an impressive at-bat that yielded hard contact. And if he continues that, if we're talking about this where it's off-speed and breaking stuff, and he is still figuring out a way to put it in play, maybe get a few hits here or there, then teams are not just going to be able to key in on him and be like, all right, just don't throw him a fastball and we'll get him out. Because that's what we're worried about, right? That's why everybody is giving the Aristides Aquino comparison, because they're just like, yeah, once they stopped throwing fastballs to Aquino, he was useless. And that's what everybody's expecting from Rhys Hines right now. I'm like, come on, man. Like, let's just enjoy what's going on. Why do we got to project? I was
so excited to watch how his approach shifted last night in that against the Rockies. It was great.
But we are going to project somebody else, because Noelvi Marte went 3 for 4. He had a double and 2 runs scored. The slump's over, right? We're done with this. He's going to be completely useful and a middle of the order hitter from now on, right?
Easy there. But I'll tell you what, I'm sure it allowed for Noelvi Marte to have a great big sigh of relief and exhale and relax a little bit. If you want to see the definition of a player that's pressing, watch him last week. That is a player that was pressing and trying to just will their way out of a slump. And you're not going to get out of a slump that way. I was glad to see what he was able to do last night. Hopefully he can now build on that momentum and relax a little bit and get back to the fundamentals of hitting and have some success.
I think it's funny because there were some at-bats he had last week where he was early on 98 mile an hour fastballs. It's like, dude, chill. And when you chill, things work, especially in baseball, because you could tell he was really trying to think through a lot of at-bats. And that's what gets you when you play baseball. And there's something else I want to do real quick, because we are going to talk about Hunter Green making the All-Star game for just a moment. I was happy to see that. But I want to do this blind comparison, because I was thinking about this in the 9th inning, because there was a guy that got a hit in a big situation and there was a guy that didn't. And I'm curious about this because I want to see if you know. Blind comparison with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. So a little bit of a situational statistic here, but I want to see if you know what you know. Batter A in this situation has 8 hits and 27 at bats, which is just under 300 for a batting average, and he has 9 RBIs. Batter B has 6 hits in 35 at bats, which is a batting average of 171. But he does have 4 doubles, a homer, and 8 RBIs. So you get extra base power, you just get a lot less hits, while the other guy doesn't have as many opportunities, but he has taken advantage of them. Can you guess who these 2 players are?
Not a clue.
Player A, 8 for 27, again with runners in scoring position and 2 outs, is Santiago Espinal. Player B, with a 171 batting average, a homer and 4 doubles and 8 RBIs, is Elly De La Cruz. I think it's funny. It's very situational and very circumstantial, but there has been some folks.
With Espinal is interesting because that's seemingly the only time that he hits. If you get him up there in any other situation, he just doesn't hit the ball. But get him in there with an opportunity to drive in a run, and he's doing well. And you know what? The stuff with Elly, I think some of what I just had to say about Noelvi Marte applies. I think when Elly comes up in big moments and the opportunity to be, I think that's exactly right, Jeff. I think he tenses up, he clinches up, he's trying to will something to happen, and he changes the way he approaches at the plate. If you watch his at bats in critical moments, runners in scoring position, game on the line, he looks a little bit different in the batter's box. And I think that that's just something that time is going to have to correct. That's experience. That's time. That's the coaches talking to him. That's Elly figuring out that if I just sit back and relax and play my game, good things are going to happen. I don't have to make them happen.
Yeah. His first swing there with 2 outs, and you had Will Benson on second. He was, Elly's the winning run, Will Benson's the tying run. The first pitch that he gets is a fastball in the zone, and he looked like he was trying to hit it to Tennessee because he was early on a 96-mile-an-hour fastball. And you're like, dude, you can just hit it to Kentucky. That's fine. You don't have to hit it to, the equator. But that's what it looked like he was trying to do. But let's end today's show with a little bit of celebration, because I feel like whenever Hunter Green was not selected to the All-Star team, there were some people that were like saying, I told you so and stuff. Like, he's not as good as he should be and all this other. And I don't understand that take, because I thought it was a snub from the get-go. And then the Los Angeles Dodgers put Tyler Glasnow on the injured list, which made him ineligible for the All-Star game. So the first guy that they called, Hunter Green, because they knew he was deserving of this. He's had such a great season, and especially from the fact that the opening day snub, and we're just like, look, this is a good thing because he needs to take this the right way. I think he took it the right way, and he continues to take it the right way.
Yeah, and there was also some people on social media yesterday, Jeff, that went back and dug up a couple of my takes on X about when Hunter was bad in April. And, I was saying things like he's got to get consistent. He's got to improve on this. He's got to get more if he's ever going to be considered an ace. All of the things. You know what? Good. Bring him back up to the surface, because he did those things. He did exactly what we said he needed to do. He stopped being a thrower. He started being a pitcher, and he has elevated his game to the point that I'm ready to say he's the ace of this rotation. And you're absolutely right, Jeff. When we talked about who was going to represent the Reds at the All-Star game, the only 2 names that were even in considering was Elly De La Cruz and was Hunter Green. And at the end of the day, they went with Elly because Major League Baseball is on a concerted effort right now to make Elly De La Cruz one of the faces of baseball.
Put him in the front.
They're just putting him right out there. So it does not surprise me at all that they picked him first. I'm very happy to see that the very first alternate was Hunter Green. That makes sense to me. That he was that high on the list, and I want him to go, and I want him to pitch. I know I've been hammered. Yeah. I've been hammered for my takes in the past when I didn't want Alexis Diaz to pitch in the All-Star game. This is a different scenario. I want Hunter to go and pitch his inning of work and have a big bad showing, a big great showing, not a bad showing. I want a big showing. I want Ellie De La Cruz to come into the game as a pinch runner and steal a bunch of bases, and then stay in and get a hit and steal a bunch more bases. I want the Reds to be successful, and I want David Bell to get tossed. I want him to get ejected. That's what I want his contribution to be to the All-Star game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are big mad that David Bell's going to the All-Star game, but he's one of the coaches on that coaching staff. It's going to be a lot of fun to see. But that's next Tuesday. We still got some more games. We're going to be with you all throughout the rest of this week. The Reds need to win, have to win. I think it's weird to say this against a team like the Rockies, but the Reds must win today. Yep. If they don't win today, we're not going to have a fun conversation tomorrow.
No, we're not. It's going to be a whole different conversation.
You can trust that we're going to be here with you every single day because we are what, Steve?
We're Locked On Reds each and every day. David Bell's going to get tossed. I can feel it.